You cannot invent and pioneer if you cannot accept failure.
We wanted people that were insanely great at what they did.
Nobody was making any money at all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
All right, today I want to talk about this idea of hard things, specifically that you can do hard things. Because I think we all get very intimidated of, I want to launch a company, I want to scale a company, I have to build a team. And then as you start to look at everything you have to do, I don't know if you're like me, you're like, holy smokes, that sounds exhausting. And not only that, but like, I don't even know what I don't know. Um, and as I hit these walls, which by the way happens at all these different points of growth or being a business owner, I kind of come back to this idea of you can do hard things. And it's funny because it stemmed from being a dad, being a girl dad specifically, shout out, and trying to teach my kids this concept. Because here's what's happened. My 7-year-old, I see like her being like a perfectionist and very cautious, which I love, by the way. She'll do something, and if right away it doesn't click, she's like, I'm out. I can't do it. And I started to see this happen a few times, and I'm like, all right, what can I do to let her see that as an opportunity? So I started telling her, hey, when you can't do something or something's hard, that means that you're about to get smarter. You're about to learn something you don't know, and that's really exciting. And then I talk about how if you were good at everything right away, you would just be this like mythical unicorn, right? It's like that's not how it works. And so we talk about, do it again, you won't have it, but you're going to get a little bit better. And that iteration works. And we started to create this list we call the you can do hard things list. And we write down things that were initially hard that she can now do. For example, reading was really hard, and now she's a great reader. Riding a bike, we might have fallen into a bush that set us back for a year, but now we're back on track. A third one is having to sing in front of judges to qualify for the girls' choir. And what's fun is she gets these little wins. My whole goal is you're doing something, you're not good, you're falling down, but then you get back up and you do it again, right? So not to go full kind of Rocky One montage on you, but that's what I'm going for, this idea of teaching grit. But what's funny is I'm trying to teach this to my 7-year-old. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should probably be looking in the mirror and saying this to myself. And so as I equate this to business, I mean, it's so funny. At the end of the day, businesses exist to solve someone else's problems. That's the whole value exchange. It's like, oh, I can't grow a company. Let me hire a growth agency. I'm sweating through my shirt. Let me buy a shirt from Neat because it'll hide my pit stains. And so it's kind of funny. Like we are taking on someone else's problems, whether we realize it or not. And so businesses are inherently challenging because we are problem solvers, right? And so, and it's funny because even as you're like, I'm down to take on these challenges, you start to see the realities of running a business is you're taking on other people's problems with your product or service, but then you're going to have your own problems as you look to grow and scale, right? So what's funny is I launched Growth Hit thinking the problem that I could solve for others was around growth. But as you get to in the belly of a company, you realize that's not the real problem you're solving. At the end of the day, the business of growth, that yes, we help people grow their companies, but for me, it's essentially a hiring, recruiting, training company. It's a customer acquisition company that I have to be really good at. Even with Neat, it's not about the best product wins. Really, it's the game of, are we good at storytelling around the product, of branding, positioning, and running ads? Are we good at inventory management? Which, if you're really good at product design, those aren't core to that. And so as you get into a business, you need to understand what business you're really in and what products you're really solving and what's going to be really hard to grow, to scale, to be sustainable, right? And another concept that I think has really helped me, and I shout out goes to Jonathan, my COO, is as you approach these problems or walls that you hit as you're building a business, growing a business, is this idea of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So with the growth mindset, it's the belief that a person's abilities can be improved through effort, learning, and persistence rather than, hey, it's innate. I'm just born with being an amazing basketball player. I'm just born with being an amazing mathematician or whatever that would be. And so if you kind of embrace that, then I think that that's really helpful. And one thing that's really kind of opened my mind to, embracing these challenges, have the growth mindset, but also whether you call it business jujitsu or turning challenges into opportunities, it's the idea of turning those problems, those things that you don't know, into an opportunity. And there's this book called 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan. And it talks about a lot of people with their business get to a certain phase and then it just plateaus. What got you here will keep you here. And to break through, you have to change your mindset. And it isn't about doubling your business, it's about thinking through how you 10x it. And here's why that's impactful. And we'll talk about first why 2x is bad. To double your business, you naturally go to the idea, oh, to double the business, I'll just double what I'm doing. I'll double how hard I work, double how many leads I get. I'll double, my staff. And that type of thinking is dangerous because you're just trying to squeeze more out of your already crazy busy day and schedule. But when you start to make yourself, okay, how do I not grow by 2x? How do I grow by 10x? You're like, wow, well, I can't double what I'm doing. I have to think differently. So even with need and growth it, here's some things I'm thinking through on how to do that. And here's what's exciting about 10x versus 2x. You kind of go into this mode of not working harder, but working smarter. Where are some like intellectual shortcuts you can take to get there? And I think that's where business gets really fun. So with need as an example, how do we get some nonlinear leaps in our growth? And one obvious one was a tweak around pricing. We're like, okay, we're going to go from selling one-off products to bundles that help us triple the average order value that we got. Another issue that we have is inventory, right? So it's like, oh man, how do we grow with a limited inventory? Do we take out a loan to just double what we can buy? Instead, we're like, hey, let's start launching pre-orders. We are selling out like crazy. We can't keep these shirts in stock. Let's really educate people in the urgency and scarcity and go for pre-orders. We've launched this about 14 days ago, and we're actually about to sell through the order we just placed for $50,000. And so I'm really forcing myself to start to think through what are those 10x opportunities. And another example with Growth Hit is, the average close time for us is like 30 to 60 days. And it's like, man, that's going to be hard to grow the business really quickly with that. And so we try to flip it on its head. What if we could close somebody on the first call with a smaller deal, with a roadmap, and we're able to close 5 deals in a week? And I'm really making myself think through what are the different ways I can think through 10xing versus 2xing. Another thing I want to put for you as business gets hard and you hit this wall, if you're like me, you're like, oh, let me find the answer. You put this pressure on yourself to be the rainmaker of answers. Instead, I would push you to do 2 things. The first one is don't make yourself have the answer. Instead, make yourself be the one that has the better question. Because I think you can really judge the sophistication of a team by the questions that they ask, right? And so that is something to ask yourself, like, before I answer this question, is this even the right question to be going after? Are there other questions that could lead to the right problem that we're trying to solve? The other one that I've been forcing myself to do, and it's funny because as I look backwards, it's been the most impactful in the company, and I have not been proactive with it. And it's simple. It's the idea of, it's not about how you do something, it's who you have to do that thing. So if you hit a problem, you're like, okay, we now have to hire an HR, or we have to like triple the team. Okay, now I have to like look at all these resumes. Like, how do I do that? Instead of saying how I do that, say, who's the right person to do this? Oh, wow, I could go find a rock star former chief HR officer who scaled teams where I just hire them. They not only solve this problem, but they're going to do it significantly better than I can. And there's another book, Who Not How, that talks about to make those nonlinear leaps. It's not about how you do it, but who you get to do that. And even looking backwards, our agency hit a wall at 6 figures, and I was able to find Jonathan, who took us to 7 figures, right? And made my life easier to be less on fulfillment and more on marketing and operations, right? And so, who are the who's that you could get that could take your business to the next level? I'm kind of done with angel investing. It was the most unfulfilling thing I've done. And I'm more so thinking, how do I invest in the right people to be the who's where we together can go down the right path? And so the last thing that I'm doing as we talk about doing hard things is I'm trying to get out of my head. I don't know about you, but you'll just like mull on a problem and you're so in the weeds, you don't know what's right and wrong, right? When you're on the inside of a bottle, you can't read the label that's facing outwards. And so there's 2 people I've done to help me wrestle with these hard problems. The first is I got an executive coach specifically for marketing and growth. And this person is not a coach. They are the CMO of a publicly traded company that does billions of dollars. And I basically begged him to meet with me on a monthly basis. And what I've found that's been the most interesting for that is not only to get his feedback and insights, but it makes me want to come to those meetings buttoned up, dialed in, and ready to talk strategy and almost kind of impress him. Because I again, unfortunately, I'm a people pleaser and I want his affirmation. But it's led to some of the best conversations to think differently on how to grow the business. So that's a coach specifically for growth and marketing because I want to be black belt at that. And just want to call out, I'm supposedly this growth guy and I still have a coach for growth. And that kind of goes to this idea of a growth mindset. I think if you start calling yourself an expert and you're like, I know everything, that gets really dangerous. But I could be wrong there. The second coach that I have is where I need development, and that's on being a CEO or being this leader of leaders or a leader of a company, because I've never done that before. So I hired an executive coach specific to that. It's an ex-Microsoft exec out here in Seattle. He's been on the podcast before, and it's been really fun to come to him with what I'm thinking, the questions I'm asking, and get him to help approach that. And whether it's getting coaches, getting peers, having that sounding board of people who are objective, but also care about you and your future outcome, I think those are. And one other thing, if they will give you candid feedback, if they will tell you the tough things, but do it from a place of caring, those people are worth their weight in gold. And you want to surround yourself with those types of people. So some other things as we kind of wrap up this theme of you can do hard things is also set somewhat realistic goals and timelines with what you want to do. If not, you're going to just always be set up to fail and miss goals and miss timelines, deadlines. And I would say celebrate the small wins. I've been really bad about this, but we had one of our best years ever, best months ever. And I made us take a mini victory lap for a few minutes in a meeting because again, business is solving problems. Most of our meetings are just focused on, hey, this isn't working. Here's an issue. We need to figure out the problem for it. You got to celebrate those wins because this stuff's hard. So when you find something that can be on easy mode, take a victory lap. But yeah, so hopefully this is helpful. I know everyone out there is trying to do some hard things in their own way, and you might find yourself stuck, and you might have been stuck for a while as you're wrestling with something. You might have moved on or given up, but hopefully this is helpful as you're trying to do some exciting things. But that's what I have for the podcast today. And one other call out, I'm doing an event here in Seattle. I think it's August 29th on what's blocking growth. It's coming from the e-product we're launching, the growth marketing operating system. So if anyone's here, I could probably get you a free ticket. I'll put a link to it in the podcast notes, and also put a link to the product that we're launching. But thank you guys for listening. And I know these podcasts haven't been as frequent as I want, but we're about to solve that and ramp that up a little bit more. So thank you.